All right, so welcome to another episode of Pro Lacrosse Talk. This is our first Pro Lacrosse Talk live show. We have a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit WPLL, MLL, and of course the PLL. But Adam, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Got my run in this morning and excited to talk. Three professional leagues had a lot of news this past week, despite there not being any games played. So some big news coming out of all of them, and I'm excited to chat about it.
Yeah, no, a busy week. And let's start off with this WPLL news. Pretty big announcement. They announced their partnership with Nike Lacrosse. This is one of their first champion partners, as they call it. We talked to Mll DeJulius a little bit about that, how they were, waiting to unveil those. And this is a really good sign for the league to get a multi-year partnership, especially when they're not having a season this summer. But what were your thoughts when you heard the news?
Yeah, I was ecstatic for the league. We've talked numerous times about how the product on the field is some of the best lacrosse you'll see anywhere in the world, and I think it's just a matter of time before it's just a matter of time pretty much before it blows up on a national level, I think. And having connections and partnerships like this with Nike are going to kind of expedite that process and get that product kind of placement out there to a larger audience pretty much. So I'm excited for the league. We heard these were coming when we talked with Michelle on previous podcasts, and it's just big for the league to be able to expand like they want to and kind of grow the brand that is the WPLL.
No, for sure. And I'll read a statement from CEO Mll DeJulius. She said, "The WPLL is thrilled to partner with Nike Lacrosse. Our goal since starting this league 3 years ago is to find partners who truly believe in supporting and empowering female athletes. This multi-year agreement with Nike truly illustrates their commitment to female athletes. Our goal is to align our athletes and league with world-class brands, and this agreement delivers on that promise. We couldn't ask for a better champion partner that cares about female athletes and their personal growth." So this is, the WPLL is announcing Nike as their official athletic apparel and footwear partner. So we should be seeing, these athletes rep some Nike gear as well as, some new uniforms with the Nike logo as well, as it sounds like. But moving on from that, we have some big MLL signings. So the Barrage immediately make a splash right following their draft. We thought they had one of the best drafts of any MLL team on Monday. And they immediately signed their two top guys that they got in the second round in Mark Ivanchik and John Mazza. So John Mazza and Mark Ivanchik sign. Mark Ivanchik was actually, on Carcaterra's big board for the PLL. So he's, already taken off of that. But what were your thoughts when you heard, the Philadelphia Barrage sign these two guys so quickly?
Yeah, it's big to have the first two picks signed right away. They're, like you said, Kark had Ivanchik really high on his big board for potentially getting drafted in the PLL too. So it's a big kind of statement, especially for the Barrage, but for the MLL as a whole, that top college talent is going to eventually be playing for the MLL. They want to play for that league, and that's a big statement overall for the MLL, and obviously a big advantage for the Barrage to add two stud talents like Mazza and Ivanchik to their squad. And I think they had a really good draft overall. We during our live show thought they had the best draft, and even after a little bit of time passed, I still think they had one of the best drafts of every team. They added big bruisers, a lot of depth in a variety of different areas. So I'm excited to see who else ends up signing with them going forward, because I think there's a possibility that a lot of their draftees end up signing.
No, absolutely. And then moving on to the biggest news of the week, the PLL announces its championship series to replace its regular season. We heard a little bit that this might be happening on Tuesday. The official announcement came on Good Morning America on Wednesday. So this is huge news. We're getting professional lacrosse this summer. What did you think when you heard that they were doing this quarantine tournament, Adam?
Yeah, I was super excited. We haven't had professional sports it feels like forever now, right? And you're only getting your fix if you're watching some KBO baseball at like 4 a.m. So I think this is going to be huge for the league and the sport as a whole when it comes to kind of getting eyes on the league. It's going to be in those time slots when the Olympics were supposed to be on. There's not going to be any other sports probably going on at that time. So it's all eyes are going to be on the PLL and the lacrosse community at that time.
And no, and it's going to be quite the ride. 16 days, 20 games. Each team's going to be playing 4 games before moving to a 17 playoff with the top seed getting a bye. And here we'll give you guys a look at what that bracket is going to look like. And, it's going to start July 25th. And once they hit the ground running, they're going to, go. And they're actually taking, a lot of safety precautions. We're going to talk to Tom Schreiber a bit about this later. But, each player that's going in is going to be tested before, when they land, and during, to make sure that, there is no outbreak of the coronavirus in this quarantine environment. But, I'm excited. They haven't announced where they're going to be located. The tournament's going to be located just yet, but I think this is big for the sport, and we're excited. And, a few other people that are excited are Brent Adams and Tom Schreiber. So we talked to Brent Adams yesterday. We have a podcast episode with him coming out. So I thought, why not we just toss it to him and hear what he has to say about it. So with that, we'll do our excerpt from our Brent Adams podcast that is coming out next week. Talk to me a little bit about that season, Coach Nat St. Laurent's leadership, and then, how hard was it losing that championship?
Yeah, it was a really exciting time, obviously, with the emergence of the PLL and forming a new team. And obviously we have the heavy Notre Dame contingency on our team, but it's all guys that are trying to figure out the puzzle as best as possible. And we have a new coach, and it's new for everybody, and it's new for every team. So it was a really cool time to kind of put everybody to the test of, figuring it out. Figuring out the roles that people are going to play. The lineups changed a little bit, but we kept pretty much the same team, whereas other teams were just kind of, floating around. And even when we, had a couple low points, we still, a testament to Coach Nat, we stuck to our true north and kind of trusted our guys. And again, we moved in a couple of guys from the practice roster, but it was the same squad week to week, which is really cool. And yeah, it was an interesting last few games, because obviously we had to win by that goal differential against the Chrome, which is, you never want to be in that situation, right? We lost a couple of big games, and we lost to the Whip Snakes up in Canada by an amount I don't want to think about. Yeah. But yeah, we put ourselves in a situation where we had to win by a certain amount of goals, and then it just didn't feel like we were really hitting our stride until that semifinal game. And then we made it to the championship, and it was like, all right, this is one game. There's no reason that we can't win this, and everybody kind of bought in. And obviously the game didn't start off the way we wanted it to, but the resilience of every guy in the locker room and it's lacrosse. We've all been there before. We've all been down by a big deficit, but that can change, especially with 2-pointers, especially, with the quick shot clock, like that can change at any time. So I think the goal going into halftime was a huge momentum shift for us. We were kind of, hanging our heads a little bit, and then something like that happened, and it was, kind of a little kick in the butt to be like, hey, you guys are still in this. And yeah, Wesley tipping that, I no doubt think that he actually tried to tip that as it went in. But yeah, that was a tough loss, of course. But we're right there. We're going to build towards next year, and not too many changes in the off season, but I'm confident with the squad, confident with conversations we've been having, and yeah, I can't wait to get going with this championship series. It's a super, super cool format and something to get excited about. And again, it speaks to the creativity to be able to put something like this together. Obviously, the other professional leagues, the NBA, NFL, can't really do something like this because of their legacy and their initial format, but we only have one season under our belt, so we can kind of do whatever we want. So I can't wait. I think just the idea that now everybody is preparing to compete for 2 weeks is it's huge. I think historically everyone kind of comes into the season being like, all right, I'm not going to be in the best shape in the beginning of the season. It's tough to get into lacrosse shape when you're not playing anyways, whether you're training and running sprints or all that. Lacrosse being in shape for lacrosse is a lot different. So I think guys are going to take that very seriously, and everyone's going to come in really good shape. And it's kind of like that Olympic style mindset where everything that you're doing in your training is building up to one event. So I'm really excited to see the style of lacrosse, the speed, the pace, and everything. So it's going to be fun.
That's awesome. Have you changed, just kind of on that topic, have you changed your workout regimen now that this has been announced, since it's going to be more of a sprint than long distance?
Not too much. I have been just spending a lot more time on the field. I have a turf field right across the street from me. So doing a ton of different cone work and shooting and all kind of stuff that I would do if I was doing a private lesson. I'm kind of putting myself through those exercises and drills and all that kind of stuff. So a lot more on-field stuff right now for me rather than being, in a gym. But yeah, just kind of doing what everybody else is doing and picking and choosing home workouts and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Awesome. And kind of going off of that a little bit too, speaking of some new faces in the league, Andy Copeland's now the head coach of Water Dogs, and we talked to him and he's super excited to get going with things. You, like you said earlier, you entered at Fairfield pretty much at the same time he took over the program. What's it going to be like being on opposing sidelines come July?
I think it's going to be fun. I think we'll definitely be chirping each other a little bit. We had a couple conversations when he was trying to figure out if he wanted to take a position in the PLL, and I know Charlie and I talked to him, and obviously we have nothing but great things to say about the PLL. So I'm really glad he took that spot, and I think he's going to be a great fit, and guys are going to definitely buy into what he's got to sell. And I'm excited for Charlie to get his opportunity to be the starting goalie, and I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to kind of sparking that Fairfield relationship again for sure. Not many of us in the pro realm, so yeah, definitely happy for him.
Yeah, that was our interview with Brent Adams. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We enjoyed talking to Brent about the season. You guys can hear more about that, just his career in general, as well as, the Redwoods season last year and what he's looking forward to this season when we drop the episode with him on Monday. But we also talked to another guy in Tom Schreiber yesterday as well, and we got more of his thoughts on the PLL Championship Series, as well as where he thinks the Archers could go with that number 1 pick. So let's hear from him. All right, today we are joined by Tom Schreiber, PLL All-Star and midfielder with the Archers. Tom, welcome to the show once again. You're one of our first recurring guests, and you're the first guest on our first Pro Lacrosse Talk YouTube show. But how are you doing today?
Well, first off, I'm honored. No, thanks for having me back. I'm doing well. Excited to talk through this stuff with you guys.
That's awesome. So let's just jump right into it. Big announcement just happened with the PLL Championship Series. Talk about how the league kind of came up with this idea that it's a really unique format and super exciting. So just talk to us a little bit about the Championship Series.
Cool. Obviously, a crazy situation overall that's literally impacted the entire world. And obviously the sports world is not immune to that. So, I think the creativity of really, it starts with Paul and Mike Rabel. It just speaks volumes to what they're able to kind of adapt and overcome to a crazy situation. So I think that creativity, we're obviously seeing it as to what that results in. So it's super exciting. So, from a player's perspective, just the opportunity to play lacrosse this summer, amid all this madness is something that's super exciting. And then to do it in a way where, if you really break it down to its basic levels, like you get to go spend 3 weeks with your team and compete at a super high level. So, it's hard to contain your excitement, but in terms of having somewhat of an inside view as to seeing how this thing came together, I just know that a number of different scenarios were evaluated, and really that's like our ops team and Paul and Mike really leading the charge, obviously, and then I didn't have too much to do with it, to be frank, but from time to time, like player related questions would kind of come to Kyle Harrison and I, and really it's just nice to know that at the forefront of all this stuff was just, can we do this from a safety perspective?
Sure.
And everything from the COVID committee, that we've, kind of assembled on the PLL side to just monitoring every piece of news possible and every piece of research, and, continuing to just keep an eye on this thing. And then, with the committee and, the entire executive team, we found a scenario that is viable. And, as a player, I couldn't be more excited to be a part of it.
No, absolutely. And you guys are, taking the necessary precautions. You guys are going to be tested when you show up, tested midway or tested right before the game start, tested midway through. They're definitely taking the medical precautions necessary. And talk to me a little bit too about NBC's, input with all of this and how they've been supporting you guys through this.
Sure. And again, I'm loosely involved in those conversations, but at the end of the day, they're our biggest partner, and a huge part of this, and the opportunity that they're providing for us, with this situation is pretty unique, and one, again, that's pretty exciting, not only for the league but for the sport, to have that much visibility and that much exposure in a time where live sports are super scarce and people are really hungry for them, especially on the team sport level. To have that in such a condensed time, like I do think it's a real opportunity, to create some sort of groundswell around lacrosse. I think we see it in other sports. The World Cup lacrosse is by no means soccer, in terms of how popular it is worldwide, but you can't help but like follow that energy and get behind it. So I think there'll be a similar impact, when lacrosse returns, and other sports likely won't. So that combined with just what this product looks like with NBC kind of leading the charge, and on the back end, I still just remember like our first game. I was lucky to play in the very first one, up at Gillette. Headed back to the hotel and caught part of the next game on TV and couldn't believe it. So I just think in terms of what this product looks like, thanks to NBC and really our team working together on presenting this thing, the hunger of the players, and then just the unique nature of this model. Like I think it's a huge opportunity, and one that I'm pretty confident we're going to be able to execute on, and hopefully it'll result in lacrosse like taking the next step, like we all hope it will.
No, absolutely. And talk to me a little bit too about, from a lacrosse standpoint, what's been Coach Bates' message to you guys during this time? There's a lot of uncertainty now. You guys have some clarity, but what's kind of his message been this offseason?
So it's, to this point, there's been a lot of waiting, and it's just about staying ready regardless of the situation. And he's done a nice job of communicating that to us and just making sure that we're, staying tight as a group. I don't think we needed the reminder. I think like our nature is like we get along pretty well. So we spend a lot of time, just, kind of chatter like any other team. And, but, we met for the first time, officially post announcement, via Zoom last night. And, you could tell like with the mute button on Zoom, like everybody was just like itching to say something, say how excited they were. So, I'm super excited, like a tournament like this with such a unique set of demands, right? It's going to be physically, obviously really tough, but then also the mental side of it, like being able to recover, playing all these games at such a high level in such a condensed amount of time, and being literally quarantined like in this little snow globe wherever we're going to play. It's going to take a lot of mental toughness, and I sure am happy that he's the one leading the charge. And I think we're already kind of taking steps to get on the same page, whether that's watching film together or just like kind of sharing ideas, knowing that this will be a challenge physically and a challenge mentally. We have a pretty enlightened group, I think, from that side of things, guys that take the mental preparation really seriously, take teamwork and leadership seriously. And I think, whether that's like recommending books or just like kind of, getting on the same page with things, guys have different approaches to that, but I do think it's something we're aware of. And then, obviously from the training and physicality side, like I think we have a lot of great resources there too. Again, people are going to prepare in different ways, but I do think we'll share, and it'll be a group effort, and it just starts with acknowledging that like, hey, you're going to have to shift your training a little bit. And, coaches kind of stated that last night, but again, like I think our team's reaction to this thing has been pretty cool. Taking it on as a challenge that they really want to overcome. And again, like at its most basic level, you get to play lacrosse with your close friends and compete at a super high level. So it'll I can't wait.
That's awesome. And, speaking of coach a little bit, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the PLL draft that's coming up this coming Wednesday. Your Archers have the first pick overall. Any insights on what Coach Bates is thinking kind of with that pick and this draft as a whole?
I don't know if it's my place to say. I know that there's probably a pretty obvious answer to that one, given the landscape and everything. And I'm just excited to bring on whoever we go with. But I think the guy that you guys would probably assume is probably who we would take. And he's just a ridiculous player and would bring a lot to the table. So. I think that's the direction we'll go, but you never know until it happens. But if it were to go that direction, I'm super excited to play, with Grant Amen. I mean, it would be pretty incredible.
Yep, absolutely.
Now we're excited to tune in on Wednesday. It'll be on NBC Sports Network at 7 p.m. Eastern. Tom, thank you again for jumping on the show today. We appreciate it. Look forward to this championship series, and best of luck training for it.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, so you just heard our interview with Tom Schreiber. We appreciate him coming on yesterday, talking a little bit about this championship series as well as the college draft. But let me hear your thoughts, Adam, on what he had to say about this championship series.
Yeah, I'm just excited I'm just as excited as he is, and one thing I thought was very pertinent that he mentioned and we had talked off show about was the capabilities of a professional league that, the product is just as strong as the other professional leagues like the NBA and the MLB, but to still be able to put something like this on because of the size of the league, only about 300 people will have to take part in this quarantine bubble, whatever they're calling it, or wherever they decide to play. Whereas those leagues that have been around for a while don't have the capabilities at the moment because of their size. So lacrosse is going to be at the forefront of professional sports for a while, it looks like, and it's super exciting to hear.
No, for sure. July 25th can't come soon enough. Another thing he talked about a little bit was this draft coming up on Wednesday. He was not too tongue-in-cheek with who the Archers might end up taking, and as expected, it sounds like it might be Grant Amen at number 1. But what are your kind of thoughts on Grant going number 1 overall to the Archers?
Yeah, it's a perfect fit to go with the guys they have on that potent offense already. I think, a lot has changed in the landscape of college athletics and professional athletics over the last few weeks. And I think this draft would look a lot differently if a guy like Mll Signings and the other guys who have decided to go back for a 5th year were eligible for this draft. So the conversation probably would have been Signings or Amen at 1 if that was the case. But with Amen being one of the larger names available and Mll Signings headed to Duke next year, I 100% see the Archers taking Grant first overall to go with that potent offense.
Yeah, no, and he's so versatile too. He's arguably the best feeder we've seen in college lacrosse. I'm really excited. I think he's a perfect fit on the Archers. You can pair him with Will Manny and Marcus Holman. Kind of replaces what they lost in Cuccinello. And he's a threat to score too, as we see in this video too. He's not just a feeder. He can score on his one-on-one matchups. He can shoot. He really is the complete package, and I think he's a no-brainer for the Archers to take at number 1 overall, and we're looking forward to seeing him in an Archers uniform. And then going off of that too, we had a few more prospects we wanted to kind of talk about. Let's start off. I'll go first with
Sure.
Nick Melon. I think's a guy. He went pretty high overall in the MLL draft. I think he's going to go high as well in the PLL draft. He was one of the top cover guys at Syracuse during his time there. Suffered a few injuries that might leave a little bit of skepticism, but for the most part, I think he'll be a top pick. I don't think he drops past 3. I think the Water Dogs will take him. He's fits that versatile style that they like. They have Brody Merrill there. They have Rylan Reese. Those guys have both ran LSM and close. And I think that's kind of how they'll utilize Melon too if they draft him. Both close D and LSM. So I think that they'll pick him. If he doesn't go to the Water Dogs, I think maybe the Chaos can add some pull depth there. They want to add another defender. since losing Brody Merrill to the Water Dogs. So I think he could be a good fit there too if he does fall to number 5. So that's a guy that I look to see, his name called on Wednesday. What's a guy that you're kind of, waiting to hear his name called?
Yeah, I one guy that I'm waiting to hear, but I don't think we'll have to wait too long, is a guy like Brian Constable out of Notre Dame, their top midfielder. He's number 2 on Clark's big board, and I don't expect him to fall any lower than that at 2 to the Atlas. They're looking to replace some midfielders like Steve Napoli and Ryan Conrad, and he'd be a perfect fit. I know they added someone like Romar Dennis in the offseason, but you can never have too many midfielders, right? Especially at his pedigree. So broke the record for most goals by midfielder in Notre Dame history. First team All-American. I mean, he's an absolute stud. I can see him fitting on a lot of squads, in particularly the Atlas, obviously, but a team like the Archers, who we already had spoken about. And, they lost a couple midfielders, and you mentioned Cuccinello, Dan Epp, and Ben McIntosh. They lost them in the expansion draft. So he'd be a good fit, but he's now fallen to the second round. So I think he's going to be wearing those horns, and he's going to be a part of the Atlas come July.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, he's probably, I think it's Eamon 1, him 2. I think that's probably the general consensus. Maybe they'll shake it up a little bit. But that's what we believe is going to happen. Then it gets a little bit, trickier as you go along. A guy who I expect his name to be called, but, he could go to multiple teams, is Matt Gaudette. He's drafted by Philly in the Mll Draft. We don't know which league he decides to play in, but I think he'll get drafted by the PLL as well. 2 teams that I think, he could land is the Chrome. I think at 4 might pick him. I think he'd be great, as an off-ball finisher to kind of pair with Jordan Wolf and Justin Gutterding. The guy can shoot, too, from range. But he is a pure goal scorer. You want to get the ball to him, and he's gonna finish it for you. Canadian finisher. I think he'd be a perfect fit for the Chrome. But if he does fall past the Chrome, I think the Chaos try to take a stab at him as well. I know they have a lot of attackmen, but they don't really have that pure off ball, Westberg-esque player like Matt Gaudette. Josh Byrne, obviously very versatile. They have Connor Fields. They have Miles Thompson. But I think they might add Matt Gaudette. How much Coach Andy Towers likes his Canadians. So if he does fall to them at 5, I think they could go that route as well. Going off of that, I know you wanted to talk on a specific prospect that we might hear a little bit later called, but talk to me a little bit about Matt Deluca and where you think he might end up.
Yeah, I think the goalie position, obviously I'm biased, but I think it's one of the more unique talking points when it comes to this draft and kind of the league outlook as a whole. 6'6", big righty out of Delaware, averaged almost 15 saves a game during his junior year. So he fits the PLL outlook in terms of he sees a lot of shots in the games and he makes a lot of saves. So I think 2 squads that in particular that he could be a good fit for were the Water Dogs and the Chrome. So Water Dogs, he's probably going to be a second-round pick. I'd assume. I don't think he goes earlier on, but Water Dogs picked up Charlie Sipp and have Tate Boyce on the roster currently, but competition is always good. Charlie has that Fairfield connection with Coach, and they brought in Tate in the offseason, and he was a great backup in Boston of the MLL last year. But I think a guy like Matt could be a great competitive piece for them. Another team not too far down in the second round too is the Chrome, and I think he'd be a good fit for them as well. You have John Galloway as the starter currently. Brett Queener and Alex Reddy were there as well. But I think bringing in a guy like Matt Deluca to maybe supplant John Galloway in a few years or sooner rather than later with his career kind of
winding down a little bit. Yeah,
Yes.
So I think he's still got a few more years, but yeah, you definitely want to see kind of who's going to be the goalie in waiting. You mentioned Alex Reddy wants, a shot as well. But, yeah, I think they could go there with Deluca. There's other guys we didn't even mention, like Michael Kraus, attackman out of Virginia. I think, he's perfect fit for the Whipsnakes if he falls to them at 7. I think, they're going to take an attackman in this first round no matter who it ends up being. It'll be interesting how it shakes out. But, I could see him too on a few other squads as well. I mean, the Chrome is another one that I think he would be a good fit for if they want to take a chance, on him at number 4 rather than going with a Gaudette. I think that's fine. Not even take a chance. These are all elite college players.
Yeah.
And then some more guys too. We didn't even mention Reese Eddy, a defender out of Boston, will still be available. Andrew Pettit, attackman out of Lehigh. Again, there's very offensive heavy in this draft. You got Peyton Smith, face-off specialist out of Marist. Aiden Hines, defender out of Yale. Miles Silva, attackman out of Army, and Tom Rigney, a defender out of Army. So those are probably the guys we're expecting to get called. Overall, might be 1 or 2 more in there, but I think those are the 12 you can expect to be drafted. Not many to kind of pull from since they're only drafting pro eligible players. But that kind of wraps up our draft preview. We appreciate Brent Adams and Tom Schreiber coming on. We thank you guys for listening. Sorry about the technical difficulties to start. We'll fix that for the replay of this as well as for the podcast. If you guys are tuning in late, you can listen to this on our podcast a little bit later today, as well as rewatch this replay once we get that posted. But this wraps up our first Pro Lacrosse Talk live show. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys for joining us. Again, subscribe to the podcast. Don't miss that Brent Adams interview on Monday. And with that, we hope you enjoyed the show and tune in next time to Pro Lacrosse Talk.